All right, well, welcome to session 3. This one is titled The Expectation Effect. In the last lesson, we talked about preserving our past and how we should not do that we need to do what we can to reconcile what has happened in our times with the Lord. And instead of going back to try to revisit it without the Lord, which is what separates us from his love, whereas love is, I know it's hard to say because his love can reach anything, but it's just trying to go back for what cannot be changed and what cannot be recovered in that way. In order to connect to the love of God for what has happened in our past, we need to do it in the present. We need to ask him what it looks like and how to walk through it. And so a lot of the challenges that we have with our past are not always what we did that we regret, but it's also what others have done that we often revisit. And it's really at the core of it, it's the injustice of it. Like, how could they do that? Yeah. Like, why would they do that to me? Why didn't they? And it's rehearsing what we wish they had done, or what, maybe I wish I had never connected with them in the first place. That kind of stuff, that's real. So we let all that go, right? In the last session, whoa, so free, we're good. We let it go in the last session. We let those things drop because we don't want to preserve them as we go into what God has for us. But what others have done has informed our hearts and minds. It's taught us certain things, and it's made it so that sometimes it can be harder to get over. And we don't actually often know how much something or someone has affected us until we try to enter a new relationship in that same capacity, that we start to see the residual of what happened. So we have to look at asking God to help us with our lens. Because again, there's stuff that was not right and stuff that was perceived, sure, but stuff that was not right. And so when we try to go forward, either to excuse the behavior of the person and thinking that that's the way that we move on, or if we try to just be like, oh no, I'm fine, that didn't affect me. They were a loser, they were dumb, that was on them. But we try to go through it that route and not actually address the stuff that happened to us on the inside. We end up misusing what the past was, mishandling and mischaracterizing. And again, it can't be a testimony if we just let time go through it. But a testimony comes through how it was shaped, how it was reframed because of what God did. So let's look in this session about the expectation effect. And it's a term in psychology known as the confirmation bias, right? And that just means that we are, and again, it's because of our history, because of the things that we've experienced, that we have a lens for what happens and what we look for. And because this amazing creation that the Lord did when he made us, we are like the best computers in the sense that we're able to have data input and then to adapt according to the data that we received. So let's say driving here. I have done that route several times. I think I remember seeing a gas station on the way here. I remember turning into here, but I was so on automatic because I've done it so many times, or because it's already data that has been inputted, that I didn't have to think about it very much. And that's how we are from our hearts and our minds. We get data, and then we automatically adapt because of the data that we received. We have to, and again, that's when sitting with the Lord, we have to consciously interrupt what the data told us in order to reshape how it comes out. So if I say, if this is my brother, he's cool. If Elijah did something to me, I have data. What he did is data. That has informed me. I have to go ahead of it. If it was something that hurt me, I have to go ahead of it and say, I know he loves me. But that is an automatic. That's not an automatic. What we take in is the data. It's like, well, I can't trust him. Rude, disrespectful. It's not true. But the data, what we just take in, will try to inform us of what is happening. And so when we don't excuse, or when we don't interrupt that data and interpret it correctly, or interpret it with the Lord, or even with the person, like don't just try to, if you have relationship and you're able to acknowledge it with the person, like don't try to fill in gaps for them that you don't have to.
Wow.
Like ask them, like, this is what you said. I don't know if I heard you correctly. I don't know if this is what you meant, but this is what you said, and this is how it came across to me. And that's taking the data that they gave you. They did something, they gave you data. It's taking it and saying, I know you, or I think I know you. This is what I heard. This is what this made me feel. Is this what you intended? And so we can interrupt the data that way. We don't have to make it up for people. We can ask them. But confirmation bias is saying all that data that we've taken in, when it's not interrupted, it is informing us about how to look at things or how to see people and how to see things. And so we automatically start looking for what we already believe. So if I think you don't like me, everything that you do, I have to find an exception to what I already believe that you don't like me. And it's not that necessarily that you're showing me signs that you don't like me. It's like maybe we saw each other in the hallway, you just like waved at me or something. It's like, oh, I knew they didn't like me. It's like, yeah, they're talking to that person for 5 minutes. They just waved at me. And we have this bias, this belief about data that we've received that is informing us. And it's confirmation bias. It's happening automatically. It's seeing what we want to see, basically, or what we think we want to see based on what we've already received. And so we have to interrupt that data. And while that's good for like relationships, it's very efficient, to just know and then be able to go off of what you know. But it is not fair to our relationships when that happens. And I have this scripture. It's a hard one for me, but it's in the Bible and Jesus said it. So Matthew chapter 7, verses 1-5. It says, do not judge others and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye, when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye. Then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. And the hypocrite part is always what gets me. It's like, ooh, that rubs. But that word hypocrite comes from the Greek word that means pretender, interpreter, or stage actor. And you think of what in that context, in the context of that scripture, it's saying the standard that you use to measure what other people do is a standard that would be used against you or for you. When we try to interpret what someone else is doing for us or giving to us, or we're looking at them and what they're giving to our relationship and saying, you don't measure up. Wow. You're not meeting up. You're shortchanging me. That is us interpreting what they're able to give. That's us being a pretender or an actor and saying, I know what you have in your pocket, and this is what you're giving me. How dare you? As hypocrite. And so when we have, again, whatever our relationships have taught us, we're looking specifically at God relationships, things that God has brought together, people that God has brought together, friendships, spousal relationships, things that God has put together. When we look at that and we say, we start taking out a measuring cup and saying, this is what I'm giving you, and I'm looking at what you're giving me and it's not the same, we enter hypocrite territory. And it's because we're trying to interpret their measuring based on ours. And we will always have the measuring cup or the weighing in our favor. It will always weigh heavy for us. We'll always look at what we're doing as wow, I am a good friend. Shucks, I am a good wife. Wow, I am good. And what are they doing? Nothing. They're not doing anything. Not giving anything to me. And Stephen Covey, he's an author, but he said, we judge others by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. So what we would do and stuff, we look at what people do, and we're like, you're fake. I can't believe I waste my time with you. And we end up entering hypocrite territory because of that. And that's because of the expectation that we have for people to mirror us. We really want to be friends with ourselves, just in a different body. I want you to be me in another body. I want you to love me the way that I love me, or the way that I love you. I want me in your body, loving me. And it's not fair. It's not fair to have that expectation of people. So when we look at, especially in the God relationships, like, we are not allowed to measure. We are not allowed to say, this is what I'm bringing to the table, this is what you're bringing to the table, and I have found you wanting. We're not allowed to do that. But I also, in the book, in Hey You, I go a little heavy on what friendship is, a little hard on what friendship is. Because when you call someone your friend, you're saying, I would die for you. And it's not always just a physical death, it's saying, I have a dream, or not a dream, because hopefully your friends won't ask you to sacrifice your dreams, but I have this thing, or I have this thing that I want to do, and I will lay it down for your sake, on your behalf. Like, that's a friend. So we have, Facebook friends and Instagram followers, and it's very loose, but don't call someone your friend. Actually, you don't have to call someone your friend who you're not willing to die for. And so having that expectation of more to be on yourself. What can I do for this person? What can I give? And you know what? You have every right to say, this is not what I was looking for in a reciprocal relationship. And so I won't be in this friendship anymore. I won't be in this anymore. And that's your right. But if you're going to call someone your friend and you're going to say, I'm willing to die for you, it makes us have to throw out the measuring cup and say, this is what I'm going to do for you, regardless of what I get back. And, you just pray. You just pray, Lord, give me friends who reciprocate you and not me. Don't allow me to look for myself in someone else. Help me to see you in someone else and what you've brought to me through other people. And again, with the expectation that can go across a whole boundary of things, but it's even in what we expect other people to be for us. And in the book, it talks about how relationships that God brings together are not meant to be permanent crutches. Like, they're not meant to bear the weight of us so that we don't feel broken. And so having our friendships at a level where we're requiring them, I need you to meet this need. I need you to be this to me. That's not what the relationship is supposed to do. Now, God will put people in your life who will help you heal, and help you move forward, and help be like destiny helpers and divine people to help you move forward. But for me to walk on you as though you're my permanent crutch, and you have to be the person that fulfills things for me just because I won't address areas in my life, like I need you to do it, whether that's friendship or a spouse relationship, whatever, a children relationship, whatever that looks like. When we have an expectation for people to be God to us, we end up mishandling divine relationships, mishandling what God put together, and requiring of them more than what they have to, more than what they, like, if God put it together, God knows what you have. He knows what I have. And he knows where he's going to fill in the difference. But when we start anchoring our relationships on the areas of our hearts and our souls and our consciousness that are broken and that are hurting, and we end up functioning in dysfunction, that's not our friendship's fault. That's not something that we need to bear the weight of for each other. We end up mishandling friendships, things that God is ordained for us to use as leverage and platform and building each other up and pulling each other forward, we end up mishandling them and using them. And that's what abuse is. Abuse is one word for two words: abnormal use. So now I have a God friendship. I have a God relationship that I am abusing because I'm taking it out of its normal use, out of the use that God designed for it. And so we have to look at our expectations. We have to look at what we are requiring of people and always reflect it back on ourselves. It's not about what you are going to do for me. I'm not going to interpret what's in your pocket or what you're giving to me based on what I see. But it's not about you at all. Be wise about your relationships. Don't just be friends with anyone. Don't just call anyone your friend, again, if you're not willing to die for them. Yes. Don't do that, but also don't expect them to be the Lord to you. Matthew 6, verses 19 through 21, it says, "Don't store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. Store your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy, and thieves do not break in and steal. Wherever your treasure is, there the desires of your heart will also be." So for every relationship we have, especially what we acknowledge with our hearts and our minds, and there might be some areas where we need to heal and not put those areas on other people, but we need to take our relationships to where we can't reach them in a dysfunctional way. We need to take them in prayer, keep them where they cannot be destroyed, where they can't rust. Because if I put on you the expectation for you to be something to me you were not supposed to be, I will destroy what was supposed to be good. But if I keep our relationship in prayer, if I keep my treasures in heaven, if I keep the people in my life who become treasures to me, if I keep them in heaven and out of the realm of my heart and mind and how I think this relationship should go, then I will place it in a place where it can't be destroyed, where it can't be rusted. And so for every relationship, instead of having the expectation that you do this for me, you do this, I'll do this, we're going to measure. We're going to keep measuring. We're not going to say we're measuring, but I'm watching what you're giving, and I'm measuring. We're going to take our relationships, our God relationships, out of that. Our other relationships, we're going to let those go. But our God relationships, we're going to put them and store our treasures in heaven. And allow our relationships to be preserved in a way where they can be God relationships in the way that God intended for them. And help us heal, of course, because that is part of friendship and relationship, but not help us stay broken, help us stay in dysfunction. So in that, we're going to take our treasures higher. It's taking them into the Lord's presence to be and to become what they're supposed to be. And if you already have relationships where God did this, but I tainted it when I did this, or I tainted it when I made it something it wasn't supposed to be, or I let it be tainted because I became something to them that it wasn't supposed to be. All of that will ask God to redeem the relationships. When we take it higher, it's like, God, make this what it ought to be. Make this what you designed it to be and not what I made it. And when we do that, we clarify our expectations, and it's more to be required of us and less on measuring and being a hypocrite, a pretender, and trying to see and evaluate what other people are doing and focusing on the speck that's in another person's eye when there's a log in our own. So again, recalculating the expectation that we have to require more of ourselves than we do of other people. So in the next session, we are going to move from the external things, the things that we can't control. We're going to move into the realm of being presently present to everything that's in our realm of control. So I'll see you then.